in Gaza that haven't been fucking killed by Israel. Israel's killed a lot of their journalists in Gaza. Israel shut down the Al Jazeera offices in Israel. They also shut down the Al Jazeera. That's actually fucking nutty. That's a nutty thing to see, especially when this is happening. This happened over the weekend. Patients connected to IVs were engulfed in flames after Israel launched missiles at the Al-Aqsa hospital. That's what happened over this weekend. Israeli attack ignited a deadly fire in a hospital tent camp at Al-Aqsa Hospital. Israel has also refused any humanitarian aid from going into northern Gaza, as it has greatly escalated its genocide in northern Gaza since the beginning of October. Here's what the White House had to say. White House National Security Council spokesperson: the images and video of what appear to be displaced civilians burning alive following an Israeli airstrike are deeply disturbing and have made our concerns clear to the Israeli government. Israel has a responsibility to do more to avoid civilian casualties, and what happened here is horrifying. Even if Hamas was operating near the hospital and attempt to use humans as civilians as human shields.
More than a year in, and still this war gives up fresh horrors. The sense of panic and powerlessness, not for what people have escaped, but for what they can see. In the wall of flames, those that can't be reached. The blaze sparked by an Israeli strike on a tented encampment for displaced people in the grounds of central Gaza's main hospital. Israel said it was targeting a Hamas command center in the compound. There were apparent secondary explosions, popping sounds among the flames.
You and I will never agree on helping everyone. You're naive. Man, that's your fucking biggest gripe with me right now. You're so dumb for that. Like, I'm not even going to entertain this conversation. Here, eat the fucking 3-minute ad break at the top of the hour. Like, that's your gripe here, right? You're watching man-made horrors beyond fucking comprehension. And you're like, I don't agree that Nazis also should get healthcare. The entire fucking point of that is to make it solving people's material issues makes it less likely for them to be radicalized. Okay? There will still, of course, be, is Al Jazeera a credible source? Yes, it is one of the most credible sources, especially as it pertains to what is going on in Gaza. It's one of the few places where there are actual embedded journalists that are still in Gaza that haven't been fucking killed by Israel. Israel's killed a lot of their journalists in Gaza. Israel shut down the Al Jazeera offices in Israel. They also shut down the Al Jazeera offices in the West Bank, which is occupied Palestinian territory. But yes, as it stands, Al Jazeera is one of the most credible sources. They are one of the only sources on the ground operating inside of Gaza still. But it doesn't matter because we're not even watching Al Jazeera right now. We're watching Channel 4. Channel 4 is a British publication. Now, I need you to understand something here, okay? I need you to understand something. I mean, this is so fucked up. It is so fucked up. What thread? The thread has been deleted already? I don't even know what you're talking about. Israel has used for the past 12 months the same exact propaganda, only when it becomes an issue in Western media. Okay? They don't even feel the need to justify their atrocities when you don't pay attention. When you do pay attention and make a stink about it, then they deploy the same tactic over and over and over again. And the tactic that they deploy is they're using human shields. Now they're using it in Lebanon. Hezbollah is using human shields against Israel. At a certain point, you have to understand they know that it works, I guess, works enough because American Western media, mainstream media, goes along with it every single time and contextualizes all matter of Israeli violence as permissible. And they're doing this to the United Nations, okay? Israel also has attacked the UNIFIL encampment. These are fucking Irish and Italian and Western nationals that are supposed to be protecting by putting their bodies on the line, by putting Western white bodies directly on a blue line to make sure that Israel doesn't fucking pass that blue line. Now they're attacking a UNIFIL camp and saying that Hezbollah is using this UNIFIL camp as a human shield. What is crazy about this is that this completely goes against all matter of international standards. It goes against what like America's own personal actions have looked like in its endless conquest in the Middle East. Like Israel has gone above and beyond. It is now officially going past the point of what America has done and the way that it has conducted itself in its bloody endeavors in the Middle East. That is what's so crazy about the situation. So if the Western powers that are funding, facilitating, offering cover to Israel in all of this inhumanity don't even fucking care about white people, about Westerners who are now in the crosshairs of Israeli rockets, Israeli tanks, because Hezbollah is using human shields, what makes you think that they would ever believe that Palestinians are also, real human beings that aren't just simply human shields, collateral damage? They do. If they believe that if they believe the argument that Israel makes about white people, Irish people, the UN, UNIFIL encampments being used as a Hezbollah human shield, they will believe 1,000,000 times over that Palestinians are human shields. Okay? That's it. Okay, Asmongold wants to talk, he said. So I'm going to try to talk to him about oh, wait, oops, I called the wrong person. About his take. Hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. All right. Asmon.
Okay. Yes.
In the interest of fairness, I want you to explain what you said that I saw in limited clips earlier today, I think.
Okay, so basically, I find it to be really problematic that people put like a lot of virtue signaling, and I think it is virtue signaling, for people that are supportive for like trans rights and LGBT rights when they support countries that kill people and prosecute them for being LGBT. I think that's a huge problem, and I don't think you can have both of those things.
So when you were saying like Palestinians exhibit inferior culture that's barbaric, you were simply talking about the hypocrisy? Is that what it is?
Yeah, pretty much. I do. And somebody in my chat said that you said that I thought Christian theocracy was better.
No, I didn't say that.
Oh, what a fucking surprise. Okay. Well, here's the thing, right? Yeah, go ahead.
I want you to like fully explain, because I want to understand everything that you mean beyond the hypocrisy, because like the hypocrisy version or the hypocrisy in and of itself is one thing that we can address. It's a super simple concept.
Well, how,
but
how
I
do
think
you
there's
feel
a
about that?
broader, there's always a broader point beyond hypocrisy, because online hypocrisy in and of itself, or even the invocation of hypocrisy or perceived hypocrisy, is seemingly a more damaging thing than like actual material harm, right? Oh, this person is hypocritical, and that's like a very common fucking thing. I'm sure you experience it on a regular basis as well. It doesn't really matter.
Most hypocrisy, I think, is derived from a misunderstanding that is often deliberate. I see it oftentimes with you. You've seen it with me. Everybody has it happen. It's extremely common on the internet.
It's the Andrew Tate phenomenon, right? Where people don't give a fuck about like what Andrew Tate may have done or may not have done, or all the shit that he has definitely done, right? And care more about like, you know, perceived hypocrisy. Usually they care more about that than anything else. So I don't really,
I think there's a Norm Macdonald clip about that. It was very good.
Yeah, I don't necessarily care about hypocrisy that much, but in terms of the hypocrisy of a matter, I can explain it to you.
Sure.
Number one, so in terms of LGBTQ acceptance, right? Trans acceptance, queer acceptance, you find that to be, in the United States of America, in the wealthiest nation on earth, one of the most prosperous nations on the planet, to be to a certain degree, like a fancy thing to advocate for, right?
I don't think that you have to be rich to advocate for LGBT acceptance.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, what are you saying? Sorry.
No. What I'm simply saying is that LGBTQ representation in video games is oftentimes considered to be something that is like unnecessary, or something that is considered
you're talking
to
about
be
like in games?
In games, in facets of culture, in facets of media.
Yeah, sometimes it happens. It feels like it's inauthentic. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, wait, is there a positive example of LGBTQ representation that you can think of in mainstream media in recent years?
Sure.
Just so I understand what the dynamic is there.
Did you play Final Fantasy 16?
I did not.
Oh my god. So they had a character in Final Fantasy 16. His name was Dion, and he was like the prince of an area. He was like the, you know, like person who could like channel Bahamut, right? And he was gay, and it was part of the story. And they actually blocked sale for that game in some places in the Middle East because Square Enix didn't want to censor the game for that reason. And I respected them a lot for that.
But that was, wait, they refused to block the game? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah. Square Enix did not do that.
And that was a good representation of like gay or trans.
Yeah, I think so. I really do.
Okay.
I think that whenever you create a character, that the character's personality, sometimes it feels like when characters are added into stories, especially if they have like an LGBT like lean to them, they can be turned into being like a one-dimensional, like I guess identification of that person. And it's like they make like an overt effort to talk about that and discuss it. And I feel like in a lot of times it can come off as patronizing or talking down to the audience.
Okay.
It feels very inauthentic to me.
Okay. So there are instances where there's like gay representation, trans representation that's like ham-fisted and just simply added on as not a necessary vehicle for narrative development, but instead simply for identity points, right?
Sure.
To do diversity. Okay. So not to get too lost in the sauce, we can get back to this part of the conversation in a second. But my point was that like that level of LGBTQ representation, it's for diversity, it's for marketing purposes. Usually, it's just like sometimes it could be shitty narrative devices, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. But a lot of people still get mad at it, right? A lot of people in the Western world still get mad at it. And for me in particular, there is a hierarchy of needs for and that all human beings respond to, all human beings exist under.
Is this like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or is this like something else?
Maslow's hierarchy of needs is appropriate, but like there's a higher standard, because the Maslow's hierarchy of needs usually is under the confines of like at least a developed country, where a developed country that is not constantly being bombarded or victims of like colonial occupation. My point is that Palestinians are not inherently anti-gay or anti-trans or anything like that. There are gay Palestinians, there are trans Palestinians, both living in Gaza, in historic Palestine, and also certainly outside of Gaza.
Well, is it against the law?
The problem is there is no time or space or opportunity for them to engage in queer liberation, let alone, advocate for more representation in their artworks, for example, when they're too busy being bombed and destroyed and killed and ethnically displaced for 76 years under an apartheid regime that is a settler colonial occupation.
Okay, real quick. You don't think that I support Israel, do you?
I don't, but I think
Okay,
that
good.
no, I don't think you support Israel, but I think you saying that
don't.
like Palestinians are immoral or evil or have an evil, antiquated culture or are barbaric is
think
not
that.
only ahistorical. What's up?
I do think that.
Yeah,
I mean, I
think you're wrong.
I don't know, man. Like, how can you be in support of a culture that tells people that they can't be who they want to be? Like, I mean, really, I mean, if I was advocating for what the laws were there, I would get banned for hate speech. How's that acceptable?
Yeah, I think you are misunderstanding what their culture is, what the Palestinian culture is, and you're also not setting the standard under the material conditions in which they exist.
I don't think that you can do that. So there are a number of other countries.
For example.
Okay, okay, let me go after this.
Okay, you go ahead. But I will give you more historically appropriate points in a second.
So basically, the reason why I don't like what they do is because it's based off of a religious theocracy. And so you can look at other religious theocracies in other countries that aren't being bombed, and the one commonality that they have is that they all suppress people's identity and they express their freedom of expression. And I think that any culture and any type of government that is derivative of a religion is fundamentally inferior. I think this is true with any book. It's true with Judaism. It's true with Christianity. It's true with Islam. It's true with Hinduism. I think it's true with anything. And I find it to be very problematic that we're using these books as a guideline for like how to make laws when these books actively encourage killing people for different types of identities. And obviously, like, I understand that there's like a huge spectrum of people that are part of any culture. There's people that are way more progressive, people that are way less progressive. But what I see is that I see countries that have laws that haven't been bombed, right? You look at like Saudi Arabia or like Dubai. A lot of these other countries still have the same types of expressions or same type of restrictions on the expression for LGBT. And I find that to be problematic and inferior. And I think that I want to make sure that this is very clear, because like, I don't want you to think that this is something that's like the brown people over there are wrong. I would say the exact same thing for us, like the church, like Christianity. Like if you look at, for example, like Salem witch trials, it's disgusting. It's horrible. So all I'm saying is that I think that there is a standard that's being applied, and I don't really understand how that's defensible at all. I don't like, and that's what doesn't make sense to me. Is
it's
that
not.
Okay, well, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
But here is the problem.
Okay.
It's not defensible, but I think most people, including like the gay Palestinians or queer Palestinians or queer Lebanese people, understand that there is no room for advocating for civil liberties in your own domestic policies when you are escaping bombing campaigns.
So, I see your point.
So
but do you see my point?
This is the reason why so many of these countries, whether it be Iran, whether it be Afghanistan, whether it be Egypt, or many of these places that were far more liberal from Western standards, from the Western understanding of like social liberalism, multiple decades ago, before Western intervention, are no longer as socially liberal as they once were, because
You're talking about like the 1917 Iran thing, basically?
not 1917, but yes,
Or it's
circa
1979,
1950.
excuse me. Yes, sorry.
And when you look at the history of these countries, and not to say that like I don't personally think that Saudi Arabia deserves to be annihilated for having a religious theocracy. I don't personally think Israel deserves to be annihilated for operating within like liberal confines, but still maintaining a religious theocracy that is baked into now their constitution.
Do you think that I support that?
No, I don't think you support that either.
Okay.
But oh wait, well, in terms of the Palestinians, I think the quote was that inferior cultures deserve to be wiped out.
Oh, I don't know about that. I feel like anytime that you're killing people based off of anything like that, I don't think that Israel or America or anybody has the right to come in and tell Palestine how to live and for them like what they're supposed to do. Right? I'm not trying to tell them what to do, but if you want me to accept their culture as being equivalent to ours, I won't do that.
Okay.
And I do think that it's worse.
Okay, but culture, you understand that culture changes throughout time. And it is directly a consequence of like how people or what people are experiencing in the United States
I
of
think
America.
that we're evidence of that. We're evidence of that because like we're much farther along.
So
I think
do you think like I don't think you would agree that bombing places makes them more tolerant to
absolutely not.
Yeah. Okay. And I don't
Absolutely
think that
not.
I don't think that you think that like nuking America, for example, circa 2013 when gay marriage was
we're not going to bomb the gay into them. I understand that.
Okay.
You're totally right.
Okay. So
yeah,
in terms of some of your statements, like not only I think you're wrong on the history of queer culture in Arab countries, in Muslim nations in general. I'll give you one example. The Ottoman Empire actually decriminalized homosexuality in the Tanzimat era. I think it was like 18th century. And before then, it was not even like a problem. It was never an issue. Far before Western nations ever actually decriminalized or made it legal to be gay. And this is oftentimes a not really mentioned aspect of the Muslim world or Muslim culture or the Arab history or the region's history at all. Most people don't know this, and it's like genuinely shocking to them. You might maybe even be shocked to find out that the Ottoman Empire, where Palestine was seen as a safe haven for Jews as they were escaping the Spanish Inquisition, for example, and many other pogroms that Jewish people experienced in, especially in Western and Eastern Europe. The Ottoman Empire in the MENA region, all the way that spans to Morocco, was seen as a safe haven and safe harbor for Jews, where they were allowed to coexist in far better conditions under Islamic rule, technically. That was far more tolerant.
I would go even farther than you are. I think that back then it wasn't just the fact that they were accepting of gay. I think that they were way more scientifically oriented. They were way more focused on learning and mathematics. I think that's evidently true. I don't think anybody would say the Ottoman Empire was shitty or anything like that. I think they were very progressive for their time. It's not even a question.
So
I totally agree with you.
But things have changed in the region since then.
They sure have.
So what do you think is the difference there? Like, what do you think has happened in the hundreds of years that have passed, that have gone by, or especially in the last 100 years? Why has the attitude overall in terms of governance changed so dynamically and so dramatically?
I think there's probably a bunch of different reasons for it, right? I mean, it's not like one reason, but I don't think that are we trying to imply that it's like American imperialism and interventionism that's caused this to happen? Is that kind of like
absolutely.
where you're going with
no,
this?
I am saying that. America not only directly armed and radicalized fundamentalists in the region, including but not limited to Afghanistan, for example, with the Mujahideen, because they were seen as like a fighting force that they could use against the communist adjacent Afghan government or the USSR inevitably when the USSR did invade. But also beyond that, the most nationalistic or the most militant fundamentalists were perceived in Iran, for example, as the true liberators that were not willing to fight against the Western-backed Shah regime, the Western-backed monarchy in Iran. So that's the reason why a lot of people, whether they agreed with it or not, ultimately on the social front doesn't really matter. They were like, these guys are going to protect us. These guys are actually fighting back against this ruthless rule of the Shah that was, you know, falsely torturing people on a regular basis.
Okay, so
that's
if your argument is that, well, how do you reconcile that with the fact that there are other countries like Saudi Arabia, for example, that don't have that history but still have the same laws?
Oh, that's a great example. Saudi Arabia is allowed to exist like that because they have a valuable resource that they are gladly and willingly coordinating with the Western powers on, in terms of OPEC plus. They have oil.
Doesn't that?
So did Iran, but Iranian oil was refined by British Petroleum, Mossadegh at the time. It was a social democrat, very progressive for the time as well, wanted to nationalize their own extraction industries. And this was seen as a massive slight and it caused massive harm to the profit margins of British Petroleum and the American intelligence and Western intelligence cooperated to overthrow Mossadegh very openly and very clearly. They implemented the Shah regime. He was brutal. He was a brutal autocrat. He was a monarch. People hated him. And at the end of the day, it was the Islamic Revolution and the fundamentalist forces that were the most successful in terms of fighting back against the Shah. That's the reason why they overtook the country and have been dominating the nation ever since. There are plenty of gay and trans people. By the way, Iran is actually weirdly very pro-trans, but I'm sure that you probably didn't know that. They're very homophobic, but they are very pro-trans. A lot of cultures are actually very pro-trans, way more than the United States of America, maybe to a fault at times, like Iran when they do forcible gender.
I mean, you look at like Native American culture, I think it's extremely popular. Norse culture, I mean, you could say the same thing about Loki, right? It's like the idea of being trans is like super, super, super old, like Shiva, right? Another good example. So I think that's true.
There's a concept of third gender in India, Pakistan, and many other places as well. So but that's besides the point. So what I'm trying to say is we cannot exist outside of the material condition that we are subjected to. If you are living under a ruthless, corrupt autocratic rule, and there's a group of people that say, I'm going to fight back against this ruthless autocratic rule that is like Western power backed, then people will be on board with that. They're going to be like, oh, this is great. I love this revolution. I'm on board.
Okay, so I can go even farther than that. I totally understand why groups like ISIS happen. Like if you look at people from ISIS, these are people that are like 20 years old. They've lived their entire life being occupied by a foreign power. I think that we're doing a horrible thing.
And Iran, though, like I hope you understand that, right? And just like there's a difference between ISIS and Hamas and all these other like
I'm just giving you an example. I'm giving you an example of like. So I think extremist groups are created. So you got a lot of heat. You got a lot of hate. One of your most popular, biggest hits was that America deserved 9/11. Remember that?
Yes.
Bad day. Bad day. But what you meant to say is that American interventionism inadvertently caused this to happen. Am I right?
Directly, not even inadvertently. Is a concept that historians call blowback.
I totally agree with you about that. I completely agree with you. I think that you're right. I defended that. Yeah. So my perspective is that I don't think that we can blame, like, I don't see the logic that all of these other countries that are like, from the West, right, that are like much more progressive are somehow intervening and making this, like, these other countries in the Middle East hate gay people and like want to kill gay people. And I don't see how, like,
wait, you don't agree with that? You're saying.
No, I don't. I don't really see how they're congruent.
So
I don't. See, like,
why
no,
do you
I
think
don't.
that? So why do you think that historically they didn't hate gay people, but now they do? Like, don't you?
I'm not
don't,
sure.
you recognize that like culture changes. You said that you understand that like the Ottoman Empire
Sure.
was more progressive in comparison
like-
to its European counterparts in terms of like the way that they view gay people, even or homosexuality in general.
I think that we can come to the agreement, and like we can talk about historically all you want, right? I think that in some cases, like that's true. In a lot of cases, like the way that this is perceived around the world, like Romans looked at it differently, Greeks looked at it differently, everybody's looked at it differently. But I'm